Hey everyone, welcome back to Dad Space. I have a gentleman that I've met through a friend. Thank you, Victoria. Nate is here, and we're just laughing about the website that's being fixed and updated in the background. And I love the website anyway, Nate. So welcome to Dad Space. Nice to have you here. How are
Thanks for
things?
having me.
You good? You good?
I'm good. You're much too kind.
Oh, come on.
Yeah,
There you go.
the website is terrible, but I appreciate it.
If you need a website built, you go talk to Nate, and he's going to take care of you. How's that?
No,
No,
Nate,
no, no.
no. That's not one of my lanes. But
There you
yes,
go. Awesome.
I can tell you where to go.
There you go. Awesome. Nate, we met through a mutual friend. Victoria has introduced us, and thank you, Victoria, for this. This is great. Talk a little bit about your background and maybe how you connected with Victoria, because I really love her. She's amazing.
Sure. So I can tell you, I connected with Victoria. I said that first. That's easier. Through Podmatch. So we both were subscribed for this Podmatching podcast host guest subscription service called Podmatch, and we connected through that. And
Nice.
we've been connected. I think we first talked the end of 2022, end of last year, and so we've remained connected. And Victoria's great because she's always assigning you new tasks. I have this term, voluntold. Victoria volunteers you to do stuff.
Oh, yes.
So yes. So she told me to connect with you, and so now you and I are connected, and hopefully we will stay connected. But otherwise, a little about me. I'm originally from a small town in Indiana called Gary. I was born and raised there, left there in 1983, and went to college in Indianapolis, a school called Butler University, and was there. And when I graduated there, applied for law school and attended Valparaiso University, and also had my master's in history and theology. And couldn't figure out what I wanted to do in my life, and then was in the financial services industry for about 30 years. But more importantly, I mean, I don't talk to anyone about financial stuff. I talk to people these days started talking about being a parent, being a father. And now more often I end up finding myself talking to people just about how we can raise our level of humanity.
Nice. Nice. So talk about a little bit about the family and stuff. Talk about how many children, just some
Sure.
basics to give us some idea as well.
Sure. I'll say what I used to tell students when I was an adjunct faculty member here at a small school. I'd say I have one wife and I have one son. If those relationships don't work out, I'm done. So yeah, that's what I have. I have a son named Naeem, and I have a wife named Latanya.
Nice. Awesome. Great family. It sounds like that's awesome. And then we were just chatting before we hit record. You shared a little bit about kind of your journey into new paths just by starting with a simple blog around your son and his path and his journey as he kind of left the US, and just kind of keeping everybody up to date on what he was doing. And that turned into opening doors for you that you probably never would have anticipated. Yeah, talk a little bit about what he did, like
Sure.
where he went and why, and then give us a little bit of that background again.
Sure. So in 2012, my son, actually it was the end of 2011, we took a family trip to Vegas, and none of us gamble. So after a day or two in the hotel, we were bored to death and thought, well, what do we do? So we rented a car. We drove out to the Grand Canyon. My son and I had just finished reading The Alchemist and by Paulo Coelho, who by chance is, I guess coincidentally, is Brazilian. We'd also read the book The 4 Hour Work Week by Timothy Ferriss.
Yep.
So we'd raised this child who believes that everything is possible, and that the very first thing to do is to envision it, to have these really bold, audacious dreams. And that's part of what The Alchemist teaches, that there's this guy named Santiago. He has his dream of going to find his own pyramid, his what he calls a legend, and that he has to go there by any means necessary. So I'm staying on the Grand Canyon with my son, and we're on the edge of the canyon, and about 3,000 feet above sea level, and my wife is yelling and screaming at us to get away from the edge, and my son and I are talking about how great it is to be on the edge, and he says, I said, don't you feel alive? He says, absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? I feel so alive that this is the way I'm going to feel forever. And by the way, next year for my senior year in high school, I'm skipping that. He says, I need to leave. I need to leave. Like in Alchemist, I need to leave. I said, what are you talking about? He said, I need to leave the country. I want to chase my dream of playing professional soccer, and I can't do it being here in America. I need to leave. So you
Wow.
got to find a way to help me to get out of here. So, okay. So Timothy Ferriss outlined in his book, one of the things to do was to hire a virtual assistant. I found a company in India. I hired I contracted that company, formed a relationship with a virtual assistant. His name is Nathan, and Nathan shot my son's soccer background, resume, etc., to 11 and found 11 clubs across the globe that were willing to have him come in for trial. So his favorite national team was the Brazilian national team. So when there were clubs in Brazil that were listed, we reached out to those clubs and were invited to go to Brazil. And we went to Brazil. He tried out and played soccer for 3 or 4 clubs in Brazil. Watched him play with more joy than I'd ever seen him play here in the States. And he said, I want to stay. And so we're like, okay. So he skipped the senior year in high school and moved to Brazil. People around me, of course, as you can imagine, were asking us, have we lost our mind? And here's this 16-year-old child who's going to go 7,000 miles away from home, and we don't know these people anywhere else. And we're like, well, this is how he's been prepared all his life, because what people didn't understand was that my objective was to make sure he was able to graduate from high school as a 14-year-old. I wanted him to be done at 14.
Wow.
So we had taken an application from Harvard and used the application from Harvard before he was born to create a template or a platform for him to use, this unborn child to use, to make sure that the child can meet the academic rigors of a school like Harvard, and to be able to do so by 14.
Okay, so where did the idea come from for that? Because right now, there's dads listening to this going, wait, I'm going to rewind what he just said, because that is not the most common parenting model, is an application to Harvard.
No, nobody. In 1994, when we started this journey, again, as you can imagine, well, no one knew we'd written Harvard. No one knew until 95 when he was born. But in 94, wrote Harvard. And the reason I wrote Harvard is because, Dave, I was a third year law student, and I had no prospects for a job. I had no idea what I was going to do. I wasn't a great student. I wasn't a terrible student. I did better in graduate school than I did in law school. But I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And honestly, I pretty much decided after beginning of my second year of law school that I did not want to practice law. And so here I am in this program to get a law degree. And all I know of about being a lawyer is going to be barred, to sit for the bar and be a prosecutor or a defense attorney or something. And I didn't want to do any of that. But I'd also asked someone to marry me, and she was expecting that I was going to be a lawyer. And now I'm like at a complete loss about what I want to do with my life. And I'm realizing that what I really wanted to do, I'd started speaking for the university, and they would bring in students, and I would encourage students and families about the importance of college and sort of life planning. And I was really enjoying that. And I'd written my graduate thesis, and it was supposed to be a 25-page paper, and it turned into 150 pages. And I wanted to publish that as a book. I really figured out, okay, I think I kind of know what I want to do, but now I can't do it because people are counting on me. I have a child who's coming. Right. I have a wife that is expecting me to be a certain thing. So I just thought, well, if I was at a different law school and I was faced with this problem, would I have this problem? And I said, no, if I was at Harvard, no one would care what my grades were. It would just be that he's a Harvard Law School graduate and people would want to probably hire me. So with that as a background, and I said, well, then what would it have taken me to get to Harvard? Well, you probably would have had to have a better undergraduate experience. And what would it have taken you to have a better undergraduate experience? Well, your parents would probably have to prepare you to have done better in high school. And how would you have done better in high school? Well, you probably have done better in middle school, right? You see where we're going. And so then you're like, well, it all starts at the beginning. So we got the application from Harvard to figure out what it would take to get to someone to get a child to Harvard and use that as the template for everything in his life. And Harvard said that there was, 3 things that they were primarily looking for. And the thing that was least astonishing to us was the academic portion. Because, of course, you knew Harvard wanted you to have great grades and test scores. But the other thing Harvard said was they wanted students who cared for something greater than themselves, and they wanted students who were world citizens. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so we use that to raise him to be intellectually ambitious, to be globally and culturally competent, and to be humanitarian driven.
Wow. That does not come with your newborn baby at the hospital, those instructions at all.
No.
No, you're kind
No.
of sneaking out of the hospital going, I don't know what I'm doing as a father. I don't know if I'm going to do it well. There's like no instructions, but they trust me to walk out with this baby and they're not following me home. So,
That's true.
you're trying to figure this all out. So what an amazing template to kind of build off of, a
Yeah.
foundation, right?
Yeah. And it was, I always tell people that really what it was a gamble. But if everybody's gambling, if everybody's saying we don't have a manual, then, well, why not? What happens if I create my own? And so when you say, hey, I want a child to meet the academic rigors of Harvard, then you start to say, well, how do you get started with that? Like, what's the most important thing to preparing someone to do well academically? Well, the sooner I can get them to be able to read, and the sooner I can get them to be able to count, like in my mind, that's where it started. So I just started to do research about who was teaching children to read and count at an early age, and came across a gentleman by the name of Glenn Dolman, who was teaching children with brain injuries to read and count, to do math, sophisticated math problems, and read exceptionally well by 18 months. And I'm like, well, hold on a second. My child doesn't have a brain injury. So if this is working for children with brain injuries, well, why don't I just try to do some of these things he's suggesting? And that's where we started with that.
Wow. So this is a completely different path, Nate. I love this. This is what I love about having a great conversation is you as a parent, like I'm just thinking if there's a parent listening to this and they're expecting and the baby's coming soon and they're hearing this, they'll be like, they're going to share this with somebody and go, you got to hear this. Like what an amazing idea. When you're telling your family and friends your plan for your son, what were they saying? Like, were they having the same reaction? Or they what?
Oh my goodness. So no, man, you know what's funny? So and you can cut me off at any time because
no, it's good.
this is a really a joyous walk back down memory lane. So a month ago, today is the 12th? Yeah, a month ago today, I think Naeem graduated from Carnegie Mellon with his PhD. They had the hooding ceremony. Yeah. So interestingly enough, a lot of people started reaching out to me, telling me what a great job I did, what a great job you've done. You've done a great job as a father, et cetera. And I told them I don't want any praise. Like you don't need to praise me. What I found to be very interesting, a lot of people who are praising us are people who were critical of us in the beginning.
Nice.
Right. So that's the funny part, that they forgot about how hard they were critiquing us. And why are you because so Glenn Dolman, as an example, said, hey, take big picture books. And while your infant is laying in the crib, just read the big picture books and show the pictures and say whatever is on the picture. So if you have a fire engine and you say, this is a fire engine shows up for an emergency. When there's a fire, here's what a fire, like you just say everything you could possibly say. And when the child's eyes start to move away from the picture, then you change and put a new picture up there. And you do the same thing with the next picture. What he was prescribing was that this is the way you build vocabulary. This is the way, so kids hear the intonation in your voice, so they start to learn how they should speak and will speak. So don't ever use any baby talk, none of this gaga goo stuff. No, so we did that. So people were like, what are you doing? And then when you come over in his home, in his crib, we play language tapes. So you might walk back in the room, Dave, and hear, hola, ¿cómo está? Bien, too. Nice. Right? You might hear Guten Morgen, Guten Tarde, and folks are like, Nate, what are you doing? And do you speak those languages? And I said, no, but there's some science. There's some science around the brain, about cognitive development. And they're like, man, you all are crazy. All right. So, fast forward to where we are now, people think it's great. But in the very beginning, people thought, pretty much lost their mind and thought perhaps that I had somehow drugged my wife to, to
What is
participate in
going
my
on in that
madness.
house? What is
Exactly.
happening over there?
Exactly.
But when your kids are small like that, they're just a natural sponge, right? They're just taking in everything, and that's setting all of the pathways to learning from the very beginning. And I just think when you talk about that Goo Goo Gaga stuff and it's cute. Okay, it's cute. Yeah, right. I got that. But what are they learning? Right? No, you want them to rise up and see life with curiosity, right?
Yep.
And so if
Yep.
you're curious and you put that in front of them, you're going to build that natural pathway to learn right from the beginning. I love that.
Yep. And that's what you and I were talking earlier. I was saying that one of the things I realized that it wasn't enough for me to do stuff to get him prepared. It also required me to be better. So
Yeah.
I had to read more. I had to increase my own vocabulary. And so
Right.
one of the things that I did with him is that I wrote him letters. And that is part of the journey as well, that because I had a tumultuous childhood and I thought I was going to absolutely mess it up. I was going to be like my father. I figured, the sins of the father are passed on to the child. I'm my father's fruit. I can't somehow reconstruct my DNA. And so I was so fearful I was going to be like my father that what I wanted to do is at least write him messages and notes before I messed it up. So I
Mm.
started writing him notes before he was born. And I wrote notes about what I hoped for his life when he was small. When he was 2, he walked to the mailbox with me and asked me for mail. So I was getting mail and he says, well, where's my mail, Dad? And I said, man, there's nothing in this mailbox that's good. And he said, but Daddy, I want mail. And then it was that insistence on by this 2-year-old that encouraged me to do something that then became something important later on. I started writing him letters. And I wrote him until I write him now. It's in a different form, but I write him every day. But I was writing him then. And so then when he is a 16-year-old decides that he wants to go off to Brazil, I have enough things that I've written him that I put 36 or 38 of these letters I'd written to him in a binder and figured, well, you're going to be 7,000 miles away. You're not going to want to talk to your father. So I'm going to put these letters that I've written you, because all of these letters are about what you will do as a man, not what you did as a boy. I never wrote him as a boy. In fact, I would tell my friends that he was my MIT, my man in training. And so he had those letters.
Yeah.
And when he was in Brazil for the first week, I think 4 days in, my wife called me. I stayed in Brazil. We went to Rio for a few days. She said, you're going to have to go back to the academy. He's not doing well. I think he's going to want to come home. And when I get back, he's got a big smile on his face. I said, are you okay? He said, yeah, I'm good. He said, let me ask you a question. I said, what's up? He said, did you put the letters in any particular order? And I said, no. I said, why? He said, because I reread the first 3 and I remember my purpose. I'm going to be fine. But more than that, Dad, when I read the letters, I remember that not only can I do something, I know it's going to happen. But here's also what we're going to do. Whenever I return, we're going to publish these letters and share them with other families, because other parents and children should benefit from what you shared with me.
Wow.
And thus that became the first book that I ever wrote, which then made be, put me in the line or to be here with you today.
Holy cow. What's the name of the book?
Raising Supaman, Supaman. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Nice. Okay,
Yep.
we'll put a link to that. That's amazing. I love the idea of writing to your kids too, because things go by so fast, right? And I think that's the biggest regret as parents maybe is that we didn't take the time
Yep.
to capture those moments, capture our thoughts.
Yep.
Again, this is your first time being a dad, so you're learning as you go as well, right? So
exactly,
you don't know what you don't know. So you're both on a journey at the same time.
Yeah. Yep. And so, so we said, hey, you asked where you started. He was leaving and he's 16. Well, here's why he was able to leave because because we started off so early. We started off so early preparing for him to be able to leave. So when he says, "I'm ready to go now," I'm like, well, I, you're ready because this was part of the plan for you to be ready. It started its own foundation as a 14-year-old. As Harvard said, right, you need to be humanitarian driven. So he had a foundation called the Social Just Us League, and he'd run drives to care for homeless teens, and he had done stuff to help with young children to learn to read because here he learned to read before age 2. So he understands the importance of reading. He had his first computer. We bought him a computer at 1, and so it is not right. It's not
Wait, not
surprising.
not a PlayStation or a Xbox. No,
No,
no, a
no, we
computer.
bought
Let's
him a
make that very
computer.
clear.
We bought him a computer in 1995. I think it would have been the early 1996. I want to say the computer. We bought it from Sears and we bought it on credit. I know it cost us at least $3,000.
Yeah, back
It was
then. Yeah.
very expensive back then, and you had the CD-ROMs and you put in so you could download AOL and all that stuff. But yeah, the very first computer we bought was for him. So it doesn't, it's not lost on me that today he has a PhD in electrical and computer engineering. So is that because he had that access to that stuff is very early, and it wasn't about playing games. He was using it primarily then for just to learn stuff. We had CD-ROMs from a program called Jumpstart and Reader Rabbit. And we had the programs in both English and in Spanish. So he was, learning an additional language and learning stuff about how to read and how to do math and science through these CD-ROMs.
For a new dad listening, Nate, what scares you about parenting today and kind of where people are at with raising their children, and what are you excited about when you look at other dads and interact with other families that come and talk to you? What scares you and what are you excited about?
So I'll start with the joyful part. How about that? So
Yep.
I'm excited because I think people have all kinds of tools to use that that can capture moments that I wish I could go back and look at. Like I could only imagine if Naeem was an infant today and there was YouTube. Like there's YouTube and there's TikTok and all that kind of stuff. It would have been great to be able to share with other parents along the journey some of the things we were doing, because I think that would have been helpful for people to see it in real time. But it also would have been great for me. Sometimes he and I talk. I said, "Man, time is going so fast. I don't know where it all went, and I can't. So many of your life memories, life events, I can't remember them. So it would have been wonderful if I had access to those kinds of things. So I'm
Right.
excited for parents because they can capture everything. You can capture everything. You don't have to share it with everybody. It doesn't.
Yeah.
You don't have to turn your child into some sales device that you create a living off of the things that your child or children are doing. But it's great to be able to look back and see the development of your child and the relationship and the things you've done. So that part, I'm also excited by some of the things that are available for parents, certainly from an academic standpoint,
Yeah.
to help your child to learn. There was no Duolingo when my child was small. We were
Right.
using language tapes. People don't even know what a cassette tape is.
Yeah.
So people don't use CD-ROM. So we have so much technology that we can use to help our children. So I'm hugely excited about that. What scares me is that I feel like we're at a time and place where people are more interested in outsourcing their children's responsibilities to somebody else, and that part scares me. So like during the pandemic, hearing educators then for the first time in a while say to parents that we need parents to participate was disheartening, because I think parents should have always been participating. We shouldn't have needed a global pandemic to say, parents really are the children's first teachers. And so it scares me that parents don't realize that the fate of their children really is in their hands. But so often we've been taught to outsource it to other people.
That's a great point. Yeah, because there's a lot of parents scrambling with like responsibilities and work and time and everything, and not having time to teach their children, and then, like you said, just dumping it onto another outsourced person to do that for them. Where's that where's that connection and commitment and responsibility lie,
Yeah.
right?
And I think when we think about how busy we all are, and it's not like I'm not a perfect person. Of course I'm not, but I just want to I want to acknowledge that to
Yeah.
anyone listening. But at times you have to make a decision about what really matters to you. So Dave, early in my career, I wasn't making much money, if any money, right? And my wife was in graduate school, and so we had to make a lot of financial sacrifices. But the one thing we never sacrificed was what was best for him.
Yeah.
It wasn't about what was best for me. I had opportunities to take a job once that was like 10 to 15 times what I was making at the moment, and I was making only about $30,000 a year. And when the gentleman offered the position to me and explained to me what would be required of me, I said, "So does that mean I'm going to have to be gone in the evenings?" And he said, "Oh yeah, you're going to have to spend a lot of time away from home." And I was like, "I can't do that job." So as much money as I could have made, what mattered to me more was just to me was driving my son to school every day, helping him learn to read, helping him learn to count, thinking about what he could be in the future, not what was best for me in the immediate. Now, it worked out. I feel like it worked out. I don't feel like I've missed anything by not making 10 times or 15 times more money than I could have made, early on in my career. But my life with my son is hugely better than I could have imagined would have been, because I've seen other families try to struggle with trying to have it all. And I just don't think you can have it all. That's one thing I've said to families all the time. There's no such thing as having it all. You can have a lot of something, but you have to decide what that something is that you want the most of. And for me, it was my son.
Anything as you look back at all the successes and all the milestones that have happened throughout your life of your son and as a family, anything that you're kind of like, this particular thing I'd love to kind of get another shot at. I'd like to be able to do this portion again.
Yeah, my son ran track, and he was pretty good at track and field. Fact is, I want to say as a 12-year-old, he ran in the indoor nationals and he finished second in the nation. And
Wow.
and finished, I think it was in the 408, in the 800 or 200 and no, fourth. I don't know. He finished in the top five in two events, and then we went to a larger track meet. It's called the Phoenix Invitational, and there were athletes there from, I want to say, Jamaica and the Bahamas. So there was some international competition. And he finished fifth there, but when he never ran track in high school, and that's because we couldn't get a an agreement, I guess, with the track coach to understand that this young man's aspirations were far bigger than running high school track.
Yeah.
And so that's one of my disappointments, that and similar with soccer, that he couldn't get the kind of experience he'd hoped to get in America, such that he needed to leave the country. I wish that I'd known how to get him out the country sooner, because then I probably would have done that at 12 or 13 rather than 16.
Wow.
Those are probably the only two regrets that I have about his childhood.
Amazing. I love how you've set your son up for his future as well. You've kept him in mind, his future the entire time. Like even when he's in the crib, you're thinking about the long-term plan for his life.
Yeah,
what's his feedback on all this? I'd like to know what he thinks of all this.
Well, I was, that's been the common question people would ask, and I'll say, hey, you're welcome to ask him. And I can connect you with him. He would be a great person for you to talk to. I think he is exceptionally grateful for the life that he has. He understands that, but I also think, in fairness, he is a 20-something-year-old young man who is just starting to get some of the life experiences that you and I now have.
Yeah.
And I think he'll have a far greater appreciation, not that he's unappreciative, but a far greater appreciation for all that his life has been when he gets a little bit further down the road. Right now, he's still trying to knock off goals and objectives in his life. And when he's not necessarily at that point where he's striving so difficultly to get to those goals and objectives, I think he may have more time to appreciate all that he's been able to do.
Amazing. Yeah, before we hit record, we were just sharing some ideas back and forth about leaving a legacy and what our life means in the big picture, and we were kind of trading analogies back and forth, which was fun. One of the things I was mentioning to you was just that whole apple seed thing that somebody mentioned to me a long time ago. I can't take credit for this at all, but just the fact that you can count the number of seeds in an apple, but you can't count the number of apples in a seed. And that you guys from an early days for your son were planting seeds that you didn't know if they would ever take hold or turn into anything, but you still kept planting, and again, you just never know what your actions are going to lead to, right?
That's right. And I said that I'm going to borrow your phrase that you don't know where it came
Yeah,
from.
exactly.
So
Yeah, again. Yeah.
so whoever is the
Thank you.
originator
Yeah.
of it, please forgive us. Dave and I are both borrowing it. But yeah, my grandmother, a hugely faithful woman, used to say to me that, and it's right out the Bible. She says, "You're going to be known as a tree, and you'll be known by the fruit that you bear." And so, like, okay, all right, and then I saw The Lion King, which basically said the same thing to me, right? With that Mufasa and Simba, and Mufasa in this moment comes back to Simba and says, "Simba, you've forgotten who you are," and so yeah, so I think the very same way that I'm the tree, and he's the fruit, and if I can't expect it to be him to be an apple as a fruit if all I am is a peach tree.
Yeah.
That I have to be consistent with what it is I want him to be.
Nice. And again, I love the idea that you're learning as a dad, as you're raising your son and making mistakes, learning from them, but as well having a plan. And I think that's the biggest thing that anyone listening, if you don't have a plan for your child, early days, you're just going to kind of bounce around with no direction, no thought of the future, and you're just going to try things. But I love your approach, Nate, that you actually have thought it through and you kind of just work the plan and let's see where it goes.
And so, yeah, I do have. We've started with an end goal, so we could at least say we had an end goal. The end goal was to, hey, how do we get to Harvard? Now, how we get there is a little bit of a trial and error. But I think the important part to say to any new dad or any new parent is that when you're talking about raising a child, you're also talking about raising your own standards. And I think we lose that, okay? Because I hear a lot of parents say, well, this is what was done to me. Yeah, but it was terrible. It was terrible 30 years ago when it was done to you. So why would you replicate terrible behavior? Like, you have to raise your standards when you're raising. Raising is an action word. It is something that is happening in real time as opposed to raised. I raised my child. No, that's past tense, but we're always raising, and we should always be raising their own standards.
Amazing. Okay, Nate, what's next for you guys? Your son's on his journey now. What are you guys doing? What's your thoughts and plans?
Well, his next stop is NYU. He was accepted into, I think, 4 MBA programs. So he's going to NYU in the fall, and he's going to work on his MBA. His long-term objective. I know folks that says he just got his PhD. Why is he going to get an MBA? Because his long-term objective is to start his own energy technology company. And what he does not want to do, because he says he's been around his father in part long enough, is to have to work for somebody else. So he wants to make sure that when he seeks venture capital to start his company, that no one can question, one, if he's a subject matter expert, because he is. He's got a PhD, he's a doctor. And 2, that he knows how to run a business, because he's going to have his MBA from one of the top universities in the nation. So that's what he'll be doing for the next 2 years. We've written a couple of children's books together, and so we'll release the new one in, I think it's August. It's called The Amazing World of STEM. So it's his 3rd book that he's written, 2 in collaboration with his father, 1 on his own, and the one that's on his own is also there's a Spanish and a English version, because he speaks 4 languages. I think I mentioned he was multilingual.
So if you want results, you want to be like, okay, Nate, it's one idea to have this idea of raising your son around the Harvard entry requirements. That's one thing, but then when you see the results,
Yes.
then you're like, okay,
Yeah.
let's balance these out. Let's the objective look at this and go playing different languages to your son in the crib. And you
Yep.
have no idea what they're saying, but you know he's soaking it in, and he speaks 4 languages. It's like, well, okay, those kind of go together. I think
Right,
those fit.
right. I don't speak them. He learned he I'll just say he won't take credit for it. He was introduced to 6. He can speak 4. So yeah, yeah.
Wow.
I speak 1, and depending on how you feel about me today, you might not think I'm so good at the 1.
Amazing. Nate, thank you for making time today on a rainy, cloudy day on your end of the on the screen there. But I just love listening to a dad with a plan, and I know it's not just you and your wife together, but great to see how a family can come around and chart out a future and see where things go, and then see the fruits of your labor, back to the tree thing, the fruits of your labor as it kind of unfolds in front of you. That's got to be a proud moment for you as a dad.
Grateful.
Yeah.
Grateful. I'm grateful. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying, I don't want to sound, I don't sound disrespectful to anyone. I figure I should be grateful because, Dave, honestly, people like you that I met along the journey who are bright and shiny, sunshiny days on a cloudy day for me, keep my spirits up. And then when you go home and you're with a child, it allows you to be bright and sunshiny for someone else because someone else pours some sunshine into your life. And so we know, we're all a part of this great circle together.
Yeah, right.
So I'm just grateful. I'm grateful that people continue to pour good things into my life and people pour good things into his life. So, and hopefully I can reciprocate and pour things good into the universe for other people.
Amazing. So we're going to have links in the show notes, everyone, to go check out Nate's new website, which is coming in the future.
Yes,
there you go.
Coming in the future. Near future.
But everyone, go out and check out the books. Check out some amazing letters to Nate's son in the process, what he wrote. There's so many great things here that we can dive a little deeper. Nate, where do we go? What do we do to connect with you? I want you as a speaker at my event. I want you to, I don't know, raise my son for me. What can we do? How do we connect?
So you can find me at the old website for now. The address will be the same. Nathaniel, Nathaniel A Turner, TURNER.com. You can also find me at the League of Extraordinary Parents. That website is lxtrap.com. It is a organization that not-for-profit that my wife, my son, and my closest friend, Dr. Willie Underwood, created to provide parents with some tools, techniques, and strategies to backward design their own children's life, to give their children the life that they always imagined by sharing with them some of these same, processes that we use with our son.
Now that website sounds like you all have like your own cape as well, and you're standing with your arms crossed on the front like Superman or something.
Yeah.
That's an intimidating website. I love that. It's a great name. Wow.
Yeah, that's the goal. But yeah, you can find me in either of those places. I still maintain the blog Raising Supaman, although I haven't written there in probably a year and a half. But there are probably several hundred articles that are written about all kinds of things, from how to look at your child's educational outcomes from the school and some of the test scores that they're giving, and how to chart your course to any school or university, or how to look at schools based on endowments, and how to make decisions so that you don't have a whole bunch of financial encumbrances when your child does go to school. So yeah, or how to send your child out the country, etc.
So if anyone at Harvard is listening, I think you owe Nate a couple bucks for all this great promo that we've been doing for your universities.
He did not even apply to Harvard.
There you go.
He didn't apply to Harvard. It's like, after he came back from Brazil, he said, it's cold in Boston. I'm not going anywhere where I have to wear pants.
There you go.
So it's Texas, California, Florida.
Beautiful. Awesome. Nate, thank you so much for making time. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Dave. I appreciate you.
Excellent. Everyone go check out the show notes. Make sure you connect with Nate. He's an amazing guy, and you'll learn a lot. Thanks, Nate. Hey, thanks for checking out Dad Space today. I'm so happy that you were here for this conversation and this episode. So great to have you part of the podcast. Would love to have you join us in our Facebook group where we get together with dads and we talk all things dad. If you're looking for that, you can find that link on our website, dadspace.ca. Also links to all of our social handles. Everything there at dadspace.ca. It's a Canadian website, dadspace.ca. How easy is that? All we need now at dadspace.ca is you. Come and join us at Dadspace. We'd love to meet you, love to hear your voice, and get your idea for the next episode of Dadspace. Yeah, your idea. How about that? Head over to dadspace.ca and leave us a message. Tell us what you want to hear here on Dadspace, and I look forward to having you back for the next episode. Thanks for checking out Dadspace. Thanks, Dad. Take care.